Hello there, Pamela Nance here, Certified Health and Wellness Coach, here to talk to you today about the holidays. All right, I don't know, the holidays, like it's supposed to be fun and see one another and all of this celebrating, but for a lot of us, I know for myself, it was a time when I dreaded gaining weight because I always gain weight. It was like I let go at Halloween with that Halloween candy, and then I just zoomed all the way through New Year's, this sort of eating debacle. So much overeating happening at the office and parties and whatnot. And I am just here to tell you that it doesn't have to be like that. I released 60 pounds from my body when I stopped dieting and started tuning into my body, and I'm here to let you know that the holidays don't need to be an exception to that. You don't have to go on a diet, you don't have to avoid parties, you don't have to abstain from partaking in the celebrations. But I do have some tips for you, and I'm gonna share that with you today because the holidays are quickly approaching us. So first off, I just want to look at this whole concept of feasting. You know, our ancestors prior to about 12,000 years ago were all hunter-gatherers from, 300,000 years ago. They hunted and gathered food. So feasting would have been very important during times of when there was food and needing to store extra calories on the body, which many of us are very good at doing, storing extra calories on the body, because there might be times when they would be in famine, when there would be no food. And so 12,000 years ago, we started farming as humans and have the capability of growing more food than we need and storing it. And in the US today, there is not a whole lot of famining going on. Now, there is a famine in regards to quality foods that really nourish your body. But as far as not having access to calories, that is pretty rare in the US. And in fact, we've got the opposite problem. Now, we have 2/3 of US adults are overweight or obese. I mean, this is really a big issue. There are so many health-related diseases because of that. So I'm offering a different approach. I'm offering an approach of jumping off of the diet struggle bus and jumping on to the electric love train of loving yourself and your body and taking care of yourself and tuning into your body and eating from a place of deep self-care. So I always want to inspire you to that. Loving yourself so much that what you put in your body and how much you put in your body becomes a huge priority for you. The holidays is a place that you can still do this work. So here are my tips for you for the holidays. Numero uno. If you have a sugar habit going on, meaning you are eating sugar every single day in the form of sodas, candies, cookies, pastries, if you're adding it into your coffee, if you're having Starbucks, heavily sugared frappes, lattes, all that kind of stuff, you're in a sugar habit. And being in a sugar habit leads you to eating more and more sugar. It leads to energy crashes. It leads to not having as much energy as you would have otherwise. So I suggest doing a 10-day sugar fast. I'll drop the link in the comments to Dr. Mark Hyman's short video. He introduces a 10-day cleanse that you can do. It's not that rigorous. I mean, basically it's cutting out the sugary stuff and focusing more on things that we should be focusing on anyways. But just doing it for 10 days will reset your body's sugar levels to where you won't crave it, and then you can have a relationship with sugar that's more recreational, much like you do alcohol or other recreational drugs or substances that you might use. You don't want to do those things every day, and you don't want to do sugar every day either. One study I read said that sugar is 8 times as addictive as cocaine. And we know there's access to it. And every single store that you go into, whether it's a gas station or a hardware store, has sugar right across that front counter. So those impulse purchases are almost inevitable unless you get a handle on it. So you've got more than 10 days before Thanksgiving. So I would suggest trying it. Just do it. 10 days, no sugar. That's the first tip. So then the second tip that I want to talk about, the second place where it really shows up, holiday eating, is parties. Now, we're still under COVID schmovid, and so parties are still limited, but there is more and more of it happening, and we do need to gather, and we need to see one another, and we've been disconnected even more so than we were before COVID, which was a lot. We've got a loneliness epidemic going on, and what we all are starving for, many of us, is connection. So with the holiday parties coming up, be selective about where you end up going. It's better to go to fewer quality parties than to go to tons of parties. So be selective about the parties that you go to. Also, know the sort of sequencing of the party. For example, if the party starts at 1, ask the host or hostess, like, what time is the meal, or, what time are we planning the meal? Not to be controlling, but if you show up at 1 and you didn't eat lunch, but dinner's not until 5, you're gonna be grazing over at that appetizer table. And that's really not a place you wanna be. So if you know the time frame, you can have a meal before you go to the party, then enjoy the conversations and connections that are going on, rather than being over at the appetizer table, munching down over there, and sort of messing up your hunger and satiety signals, so that when dinner is served, you're not really hungry, so you don't know when you're really full, and then you overeat, and then you don't feel well. So also at the parties that you go to, focus on your connections with people. Now, how do we do this? This is what we're all starving for. And this is really, I don't know why we don't learn more about this or practice it. So people are really hungry to connect with other people. That's my thought. That's what I see. But they don't really know how. Like, superficial small talk might be okay for a minute, but we really need to allow ourselves to have deeper conversations. So the best place or best way to start doing that is for you to become a good listener. You can look up active listening. You can Google that. You will find that it says things like, when someone else is talking, you are listening and you're not trying to think of what you're going to say in response. This is not a place for you to reach in and grab the conversation, because you are listening to what they're saying, and then you ask them a couple of good questions about what they're talking about. You can also say something like, well, is this what you said? And sort of, that's reflective listening. You kind of listen back, say back to them what they said to make sure you heard them correctly. Look into their eyes if that's appropriate in your culture. Like, that is really a sign that I'm listening, I'm here with you. And that's also, many believe, like a window into the soul. It's just spend some time getting comfortable, looking into people's eyes. They will feel heard. And when you ask good questions, they will feel heard. And that sets up like a feeling of safety between both of you. And then you will have your moment to share as well. And hopefully it will be reciprocated back to you, that moment of good listening and some good questioning going on. And and if it's not happening with that person you're talking to, you can, politely move along and go make a connection with somebody else, and just really tune into your intuition and see, like, who am I curious about? Who haven't I seen for a while? What's happening in this person's life? And see who you are drawn to at these events, because oftentimes it's whoever we're drawn to, there's something meaningful that can be shared. And this is what I want you to focus on when you go to these holiday parties. Also, plan in advance how many alcoholic beverages you're going to have, if any. I mean, you might want to consider just staying sober, especially if you're going to need to drive, but certainly no more than like 1 or 2. It's pretty much empty calories. Yes, it can add to the mood. We want it to enhance, but it can also lead to other behaviors that we don't want to practice, like overeating. Once your guard is down with the alcohol and just like, oh, whatever, Also, the sweets table, if this is an issue for you, you should plan in advance, like what you're gonna have for dessert, like look them over, or tell yourself at least, I'm just gonna have 1 piece of pie or 2 skinny slivers of different pies or whatever. Just have a plan going in and really plan for your success. As I said earlier, like, don't go in starving if you know the meal isn't gonna be served for 3 or 4 hours. Take care of yourself. This is where I am really promoting that you become your own responsible adult in charge, large and in charge of your well-being, which includes your nutrition. Okay, so the next big place is the office. Oh my God, the last office I worked in, come Christmas, or the holidays, was like a diabetic coma den. I mean, the amount of sweets, it was almost, I want to say borderline grotesque. It was just like, what is happening here? We had a lot of vendors. The vendors would bring stuff in, boxes of See's candies and cupcakes and cookies and all of that stuff. And oh my gosh, I worked there for 5 years, and the first couple of years, I would give in, and then I would feel like crap because I had too much sugar, and it was this constant kind of battle. Like, I don't want to eat it. Oh, it's in there. Oh, I'm bored. I'm procrastinating. I'm gonna go in there. I'm gonna get a cupcake, and then I felt like I kind of had to hide it because people knew that I was, healthy. I didn't want to eat that stuff, but I was gaining weight, and so sometimes you just have to say no to all of it. Sometimes that's why alcoholics, if they're in a sober program, they don't drink at all. Because there are some people, once they start eating the sugar or start drinking the alcohol, they can't stop. And that can also be a phase. Like, if you do the sugar detox, clean it out of your system, you will most likely be able to have sugar recreationally, like at a birthday party or at one of these Christmas parties or something, but not need it every day. But some people, once they start eating sugar, they can't stop. So sometimes abstinence is the best choice. I had to do that at work because there was so much stuff in there that I just couldn't, it wasn't working for me to moderate it. It just was better for me just not to look at it. Nope, not looking at it. Because I didn't want to be craving it. I didn't want to sit at my desk and be like, oh, the cupcakes, So that might be an option for you. Also, you can be the nerd that brings in the fruit platter with some cheeses and nuts or something. Bring that in, so that is in there too. Make sure you plan to bring yourself a healthy lunch. Like I said, be large and in charge of your nutrition. Bring a healthy lunch, or plan to go out and have a healthy lunch, so you're not leaving it up to chance, like coming into work with no food. Oh my gosh, I'm starving. I guess I'm going to have to eat pie. No. That's not a good practice. No. So, in the office, you got to take charge. Bring in some healthy stuff. Make sure you have healthy meals. And then last piece is the family parties. So, most of us, I won't say we all, but a lot of us, there can be stressful situations that happen with the family parties. So it's good to just acknowledge that going in, do your best to plan for success. If you are the host or hostess, I suggest making it as stress-free as possible by paying someone to clean your house. How many hours have we all spent deep cleaning the house before the guests get there? No. Hire someone. Somebody needs a job. Hire someone to deep clean your house so that you're starting off with, a higher energy. If you start off with resentment from the get-go about cleaning your house, you're going to wind up face down in a pie, because that resentment, I know from being a person that did it all and then got resentful. Then the cure for that was a pie or whatever. So, get help. If you are the host or hostess, consider doing a potluck or have people bring the side dishes. You don't have to be Martha Stewart in there, okay? Or Betty Crocker or Julia Childs. Like, you're not gonna get any more brownie points because you did the whole martyred meal. Nobody likes a martyr. My grandma was a martyr. Sorry, Nana, she was. So don't be a martyr. Be smarter than a martyr. Don't be a fucking martyr, man. Get help. Ask for help. Have people bring dishes. There's no shame in that. Plan for non-food activities. Get some karaoke. Get some conversation cards. Have some playlists. Clear a space so people can dance. Plan to go for a walk. Break out a game. If you've got kids in the house, like talent show stuff. I remember my cousins doing that, like dancing for us, or, I don't know, we probably sang songs and things. So, singing songs as a family, that's a great thing. Plan for non-food activities. This is the place where you can really connect. Like what I was saying earlier about the parties, we are all starving for connection. COVID has really exacerbated that. I mean, it was big before. There was an epidemic of loneliness in our country before, but now it's even greater with COVID. So plan for some activities where people can connect. Get these, I got them through this company called ACE. I'll drop that in the notes, in the comments. ACE conversation cards. They have date night cards, but I think they also have like party cards. So you can ask some interesting, different questions to people, find out more about people, something that's going to invite connection with people, not just turning on the television and everybody sitting watching a movie. I mean, maybe that's your family's thing, but I don't know. To me, that does not promote connection unless you're talking about the movie afterwards, or I'm not sure where the connection would come in with that. I guess it's a shared experience. But is it a rich shared experience? I guess maybe for some. I don't want to judge your Christmas plans. And then also the dreaded triggers that happen at the family parties. You know what I'm talking about? You know what a trigger is? A trigger is when Uncle so-and-so says or does the annoying thing he's been saying or doing for 50 years, and you feel this whoosh go through your body, and you might get flushed, and your heart starts to race, and some words want to come out of here. Some words. I would say, this is where you have to practice mindful awareness. Zip it, and don't, if you're whooshed, if you're triggered, and you're flushed, and your heart is racing, not a good time to let words come out. Recognize that 80% of our triggers have 80% of our triggers come from our history, from the past. So Uncle so-and-so has been doing this thing that's pushed your buttons for all of this time. So the family party, unless you are all a seasoned bunch of therapy goers, or maybe therapists, or, it's like a practice in your family to deep dive into the family bullshit during the family gathering, I would say zip it. Change the subject, change your location, Possibly if you and Uncle so-and-so are together alone for a moment later, you can say, you know, Uncle so-and-so, what you said earlier, I realized I kind of have a charger on that. Can I call you after the party? I want to talk about that. But recognize that these triggers have so much to do with you. So this is a good place to work in therapy. If you have a therapist or you are thinking about getting a therapist, or a coach, I highly suggest that. I think I'll always have one because things come up that need to get looked at. And so you could just sort of say, okay, I'm going to talk to my therapist or my coach or my trusted friend about this thing and look at it deeper, do some journaling about it. But right there at the holiday party, probably not a good time to address it. You want to do things that are going to bring connection. So some practices to look at through this whole thing are, number one, gratitude. Being in a state of gratitude is so helpful. It leads to joy. It leads to you focusing on what's working in your life. It leads to counting your blessings. It leads to having a peaceful presence when you're grateful, when you're focusing on gratitude. Because when you're focusing on gratitude, you're not focusing on what's not working. Demonstrating actions, love-based actions to your family and friends. Remembering the thing that your aunt loves. Taking flowers, showing up with a gift. Remembering a story that someone told you before. Just showing care and kindness. When you're listening to another person, if it feels appropriate, looking into their eyes and really connecting in this deeper soul level. I'm telling you, that's where the magic is. We are all really hungry for that connection. And that is what is going to bring the bright light that will sustain us through these longer nights, these darker, these days that have less light, and this darker time where we go more internal. When you can share and connect and tell stories and be loving and kind and present with others, that's where the magic is. So take the time to be that and do that first for yourself. Be your own kind, loving presence, your own curious witness about you, and then allow that to spread through this holiday season and throughout the rest of the year. Because really, it is time, past time, to focus on the energy of love, caring, and kindness. Move away from the dark fear that has been, I don't know if it's ruling the planet, but it's just not serving us. So, wishing you a wonderful holiday. If you need help with anything that I've talked about, I can be your guide. You can reach me at my email, bloomwithpamela@gmail.com. Check out my website, which is bloomfromwithinwellness.com, or leave a comment here. All right, have a beautiful holiday season. Take good care of yourself and spread light, love, and joy. Okay, we'll talk to you soon.